Hey YouTube, this is Mike, and I just wanted to share a short little snippet from this episode that I really enjoyed. However, if you want to listen to the full episode, either scroll down this post or head to mikejamesreid.com/podcast for the full episode. Thanks and enjoy. Place to start would be, I read on your website somewhere that you referred to yourself as a bon vivant.
Bon vivant.
Bon vivant. Beg your pardon. That's my Australian coming through. Can you please explain to us what does that mean? What's that all about?
Well, bon vivant is a French word, and it essentially, bon means good, and vivant means, I guess, liver of life, and it just describes somebody who enjoys living life and enjoys living it well and to the fullest. And that's kind of, that's been my modus operandus, I think, for a long time. And I think, the narrative arc that runs through my life has been maybe a rejection of the stories that I've been told about how to live my life and embracing my own path and oftentimes being unabashedly unafraid to just be who I am, I guess, and live life my way, which, can also cause friction on the other end, for the receiving end of me. But it also means I feel like I generally live life pretty authentically. So it's a constant quest to understand what means for me the good life, rather than just kind of living life passively and going along with the expectations that have been set out for me.
Yeah, man, it's funny. I really noticed that about you, having not known you for a very long period of time, but you do seem to really live life on your own terms. And I think just by the nature of what you do now, and I don't know, maybe what you've done in the past as well, those things are all examples of what you've just said. Tell me about that experience of, choosing to live life on your own terms. Like where did that come about, and what have been some of the highs and the lows in, like finding the equilibrium in that?
I guess, going back, I dutifully completed high school and did reasonably well in high school. And, maybe I didn't question it enough back then. I'm happy I completed high school. But then out of high school, I decided I would go into engineering. And my dad was an engineer, and maybe my dad had passed away by then, so he wasn't laying any expectations on me, but I think it was some sort of vestigial, expectation. So I thought, okay, I'll do the dutiful thing and become an engineer. And I lasted 3 months at University of Toronto Engineering School. And I realized after 3 months it was a terrible fit, and dropped out and worked for the rest of the year. And then I came back and started a general arts degree, and lasted a year in that. And I decided that I didn't necessarily want to reject that path. And, I could tough out the university education for a few years, but right then what was calling me was the desire to explore. And so I ended up going on a 6-month trip through Southeast Asia, Indonesia and Malaysia, Thailand, and then over to Nepal and India, and really just exploring. And that I think was a big eye opener of a trip at the age of 20. There weren't that many people going to Southeast Asia at that time. Maybe a lot of Australians, but certainly not a lot of North Americans. And it lit the spark that ended up, with a lifelong career in the world of travel and adventure. And ever since then, I've really tried to stay true to what speaks to me, rather than the other voices that are trying to tell me where my life should be headed. And I think lately that's been a particularly big focus of mine, especially over the last year or so since I've exited my previous company, is really trying to really dive deep and understand what makes me tick and what feels in alignment for me. So that's been a wonderful process, and really just discovering what lights me up and then putting energy towards that.
What's one of the most memorable adventures that you've been on recently? And how did it get you thinking differently or give you a different perspective?
Well, most recently, I actually just got back from Bhutan 2.5 weeks ago, and I was running an event with my company, Mastermind Adventures. That same trip back when I was 20 through Southeast Asia and then over to Nepal, I really, really loved Nepal. I loved the country and the Himalayas and the people. And while I was there, I heard about this little kingdom kind of next door called Bhutan, and that it was a very sort of magical little Himalayan kingdom, and it was kind of tucked away over in this little corner of Asia, and it was also hard to get into. And it kind of just percolated in the back of my mind for years and years, and I would think about it every now and then and think, oh, I have to get over to Bhutan, and nothing ever came of it for over 20 years. And then last year in 2018, when it was time to map out my events for this year, Bhutan very quickly made it to the top of the list, and it was such an incredible week, and just for many reasons. It's just such a magical little country, and there's only about 250,000 tourists make it into the country. There's a number of regulations, and you have to spend a minimum of $250 US a day in order to visit it. So there's very few tourists, and you've got the Himalayas, you've got this. It's a Buddhist kingdom, the world's sole remaining Buddhist kingdom, and Buddhism informs everything, daily life, spiritual life, everything in that country. So we spent a lot of time exploring that and visiting remote monasteries, learning meditation from some of the most badass monks in the world. And it was just a powerful experience on many levels.